Your flaws aren't weaknesses to hide. They're untapped leverage waiting to be weaponized. Perfection is the most expensive illusion you've ever bought into, and you've been paying for it with your identity. From the moment you became aware of yourself, subtle signals started shaping your behavior. Be polished, be composed, be impressive. Somewhere along the way, you learned that being accepted meant being edited, that your raw self, the unfiltered, imperfect, unpredictable version, was something to refine, smooth out, and ultimately hide. But here's the uncomfortable truth. Every time you polish yourself for approval, you dilute your power. You start speaking in safer tones, thinking safer thoughts, acting within invisible boundaries set by people who aren't even in the room. And slowly, without realizing it, you trade authenticity for approval. You become digestible, but forgettable. The world doesn't reward perfection. It rewards distinction. And distinction is born from friction. Think about it. What actually makes someone memorable? It's rarely their perfection. It's their quirks, their contradictions, their rough edges. The very things society told them to suppress become the things that define them. But most people never get there. Why? Because they're too busy sanding themselves down into something socially acceptable. This video isn't about self-acceptance in the soft, comforting sense. It's about strategy. It's about understanding that what you've been calling flaws are actually unoptimized assets. And the longer you try to hide them, the more you delay your own evolution.
There's a version of you that exists purely for other people. It's the version that knows how to say the right things, act the right way, and blend into expectations. It's curated, controlled, calculated. And it's exhausting. Because maintaining a persona requires constant energy. Every interaction becomes a performance. Every decision becomes filtered through, how will this be perceived? This is where most people get stuck. There's a version of you that exists purely for other people. It's the version that knows how to say the right things, act the right way, and blend into expectations. It's curated, controlled, calculated. And it's exhausting. Because maintaining a persona requires constant energy. Every interaction becomes a performance. Every decision becomes filtered through, how will this be perceived? This is where most people get stuck, not because they lack talent, but because they're trapped in internal conflict. They're split between who they are and who they think they need to be. Look at the cultural scripts we unconsciously follow. Entrepreneurs must be fearless risk-takers. Creatives must be chaotic and tortured. Leaders must be hyper-confident and extroverted. These aren't truths, they're stereotypes. And when you try to force yourself into a mold that doesn't fit, you don't become better, you become fragmented. Even someone like Elon Musk wasn't immune to this. Early on, you could see the effort, the attempt to fit into a more acceptable version of success, the polished billionaire persona, the rehearsed confidence. It didn't feel natural, because it wasn't. And people can sense that. Authenticity isn't about being perfect. It's about being coherent. When who you are internally matches what you express externally, something powerful happens. You stop leaking energy. No more overthinking every word. No more second-guessing your instincts. No more pretending. You become aligned. And alignment is where real power begins.
What if your flaws aren't random? What if they're signals? Most people treat their weaknesses like defects, things to fix, hide, or compensate for. But that's a surface-level interpretation. Your flaws are often exaggerated traits, distortions of something that, when understood and directed properly, becomes a strength.
Let's break that down. Overthinking? That's pattern recognition without direction. Social awkwardness? That's a different cognitive wiring, not a deficiency. Obsessiveness? That's focus waiting to be channeled. The problem isn't the trait, it's your relationship with it. When you label something as a flaw, you unconsciously push it into the shadows, and anything in the shadows controls you. But when you bring it into awareness, when you study it, understand it, and accept it, you gain leverage over it. This is the turning point. This is where shame becomes strategy. Take Elon Musk again. When he openly acknowledged his Asperger's, he didn't frame it as a limitation. He reframed it as part of his identity. That shift does something profound, not just internally, but externally. Because when you own something fully, no one can use it against you. And more importantly, you can start using it for you. Your uniqueness isn't in your strengths alone. It's in how your strengths and flaws interact. That specific combination is unreplicable. And in a world saturated with sameness, unreplicable is power.
Perfection is predictable, and predictable is replaceable. Think about any industry: business, content, art, leadership. The people who stand out aren't the most polished. They're the most distinct. They have edges. They say things others won't say. They think in ways others don't think. They express themselves without constantly self-editing. That's not recklessness. That's clarity. When you embrace your flaws, you stop trying to compete on generic metrics. You stop playing a game designed for conformity. Instead, you create your own playing field. This is the strategic advantage no one talks about. Because when you lean into what makes you different, even if it feels uncomfortable, you reduce competition automatically. No one can outcompete you at being you, but they can easily outcompete a watered-down version of you trying to imitate someone else. The corporate world often rewards polish because it values control. But outside of that system, in real influence, real creativity, real impact, raw authenticity cuts through noise. People don't connect with perfection. They connect with truth. And truth is messy. It has contradictions. It has tension. It has imperfections. That's what makes it human. And in a world increasingly dominated by artificial signals, being undeniably human becomes your greatest leverage.
So what does this look like in practice? It's not about announcing your flaws to the world or turning them into an identity crutch. It's about integration. It's about no longer being at war with yourself, because that internal war is where most of your energy goes. When you stop fighting who you are, you reclaim that energy, and you can redirect it towards building, creating, evolving. You become more focused, not because you're forcing discipline, but because you're no longer divided. This is what people misunderstand about self-acceptance. It's not passive. It's not complacent. It's strategic alignment. You're not saying, "This is who I am and I'll never change." You're saying, "This is my starting point, and I'm going to build from here, not from a fantasy version of myself." That shift changes everything, because now growth becomes real, sustainable, grounded. You're no longer chasing perfection. You're refining reality. And ironically, that's what brings you closer to excellence. Not the kind that looks good from the outside, but the kind that actually works. So the next time you feel the urge to hide a part of yourself, pause,
Ask yourself, is this a flaw or is this an unrefined advantage? Because the answer to that question might be the difference between blending in and becoming undeniable.
If this conversation gave you something to think about, a new perspective, or even a small sense of clarity, then this channel is for you. Consider joining this growing community by subscribing and leave a like on the video so more people searching for answers can find these ideas too. Your support keeps these conversations alive. Until the next video, keep reflecting, keep growing, and keep pondering life's journeys.